Hello everyone, welcome back. We're going to be talking about rhythm changes today, and at the end I'm going to go over how to start building walking bass lines with chords on guitar. Rhythm changes is going to contain a lot of the stuff that we've seen already, and that's why I waited to do it until now. At first it can be a little intimidating because it's like it can be very fast sometimes, and it has 2 chords per measure. It seems like there's a lot going on, but really there's 3 things that are happening in the song. One is that we have the turnaround in A section, and it's not just at the end of the A section like a lot of other songs. We have 1-6-2-5 or 3-6-2-5. The 1 and 3 are interchangeable. We've talked about that, so I'm not going to get into it again. Look back previous videos, and if you want more info on that. So we have the 1-6-2-5 and 3-6-2-5 interchangeably, and we have the 4-chord trick where it takes us back to the 1 chord by going 4 and then to the minor 4 chord and then resolving to the 1 or 3 again because they're functionally acting the same. That's the whole A section. It looks like, oh my god, all these chords, what am I going to do? But really that's what it breaks down to. And the B section is also 3-6-2-5, except it's not functioning that way because they're all dominant chords, and it's just one dominant chord leading to its target, the next one leading to its target, and so on. So let's go through it. One thing worth mentioning is, just because of muscle memory, I might be playing some tritone substitutions. So like if we have, let me show you what I mean. 1, and I'll try to do a lot of shell voicings too because that's what we're going to use for our bass line. So if we have 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5. So this 3, 6, when I say 6, it's because that's the tritone sub of the 6th chord. If you don't know about tritone substitutions, there's a lot of resources online about it, and that's why I haven't made a video on it, because I'm assuming people have either seen it elsewhere and know about it already, or that you're just going to look it up. I'd be happy to explain it. It's not a very long explanation, but I don't want to do it in this video to take the time. And I'd be happy to do it though if anybody wants some discussion about that. So let's get into it. The A section we have, and also I'm going to play 1 or 3 interchanged, so I could do one or the other for these progressions. So we have, I already played the beginning of it. We have 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5. Now the first thing we've seen in other tunes, the 5 chord is going to turn into the 2 of a new key. 2 of 4, 5 of 4, 4 chord. And then that 4 chord is going to turn into a minor 4. And automatically we know it's going back to the 1 or it's going to the 3. 6, 2, 5, next chorus. And that's the A section. You'll see sometimes people playing, and written in the song as well, instead of 1, 6, 2, 5, they'll lead chromatically up with the bass note, and the notes in between chords, sorry, the chords in between chords, so if we have like 1, 6, and then 2, the chord between the 1 and the 2 is just going to be a diminished chord based off the note between those. So we have 1, and then flat 2 is a diminished chord, 2, and then the next chord after the next one, sorry I don't know the word for that, is going to be right in here as well. So if we have 2, flat 2, and then 3. I'm trying to be as articulate as I can. I'm doing Cinderella the musical this week, and it's just been a long week. We did like 3 performances yesterday, and I just got back from another one now, and I just wanted to do this. I have more tomorrow. I wanted to do this because otherwise I'm not going to get to it probably until like the end of this upcoming week. So I apologize for any lack of articulation or mixing stuff up in my head, because I'm in kind of in upright bass mode. Where was I? So yeah, basically instead of, it's the same turnaround, but it's going to be 1, flat 2, 2, flat 3. Did I say flat 2 earlier? If I did, I'm sorry. But it's basically that. And then you can go back down with tritone sub if you want. 5 of 4, 4, minor 4, 3, tritone sub of 6, 2, 5, 1. And now we're at the B section. So the B section, like I said, is still just 3, 6, 2, 5, except they're not acting that way really. We have 2 bars of each. So the 3 chord is dominant for 2 bars. The 6 chord is dominant for 2 bars. 2 chord is dominant for 2 bars. And 5 chord is dominant for 2 bars. The reason that our ear doesn't really process it like, oh, here's another 3, 6, 2, 5, is because they're all dominant. And what this is if you've heard of secondary dominance, is kind of what we're dealing with, where it's a dominant chord that doesn't take us back to the 1, it takes us back to another dominant chord. So the 3 chord, it's D7, that's the 5 of G, right? And that's the next chord, but it's G7. And now that's the 5 of C, and that leads us to its target, but instead of C major 7, it goes to C7. And then that's the 5 chord of F, leads us to F7, and then that's the 5 chord of B flat, which is our 1 chord, and we're at the top of the song again. So that's all of rhythm changes. There's not, it looks intimidating if you look at it on the page. This is why it can be really nice not to learn stuff off the page and use your ears, because if you've worked on the stuff we've been talking about, all this will sound very familiar. And it's very, very hard to look at a piece of paper and say, I'm going to transpose this, and then think, let's say like a 4th up or something, if we did it in E flat, to look at the page and say, okay, I need to take the 1st chord and go up a 4th, 2nd chord up a 4th, 3rd chord up a 4th, 4th chord up a 4th, and it's just so hectic. If it would be really up-tempo, it would be probably impossible for most people to think of it that way. But if we think of it as these large chunks of harmony devices that we've seen, it's just much easier. And on the guitar, we have these advantages because we have a very friendly transposing instrument. Because we don't have black keys and white keys and stuff like that. I want everyone to, and myself, to know what we're playing, ideally, but really we can get away with transposition stuff that other instruments can't. So that's the tune. Do it in all 12 keys. I want to get into the bass line thing, because this is a good song to start talking about that. A couple things about, for those of you who don't know, I'm a bass player. That's the instrument I went to school for, and I took a year of guitar in college, and then I switched to bass. So that year of guitar in college is kind of my formal training, and then I've just taught myself for the rest of it, applying what I know on bass over to guitar. Why did I mention that? Oh, because since I'm a bass player, and we're talking about bass lines, these are very formulaic and stereotypical bass lines that I'm going to be showing you. They're a great place to start. If I had a bass student, I'd be starting with the same thing as well. As a bassist, I have a lot of respect for bass lines and trying to come up with creative bass lines and melodic bass lines. And I wouldn't want to do these bass lines all night long, because I don't think it would serve the music well. This is just a first step with it. And the good news is that it also sounds like music. It's not just an exercise. So let's just deal with the roots, and then we'll add the chords. We have 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5. Let's start with just that. 2 beats each. That means we have 1 something, 6 something, 2 something, 5 something, 3 something, etc. So we have to put a note in between those. The bass line has to be playing, and there are no rules, but I'm going to act like there are for a second. The bass has to be playing a root or a fifth for every chord. And that's a foundational thing that when you have bass players that don't do that, it's not wrong, but that's when you kind of feel like the rug is pulled out from underneath you, and it's usually a conscious choice, or sometimes an inexperienced student who's trying to explore and not laying it down maybe like they should be. So it can be good or it could be bad. But right now we're using the roots because that's where we need to start with bass lines. You can do the more free whatever stuff later. So what we have to do is add a note between the chords on beat 2 and 4, because the chords are on 1 and 3. So what we're going to do is lead up to each chord by either a half step or a whole step, and it can go either down and up to the next chord, or from higher and then down to the next chord. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say we're going to always go 1 fret away, 1 half step away, and then lead to the next chord. So if we have 1, and this is where shell voicings are important as well. I'm going to do this with the chords instead. Well, let me do the bass line first. So if we have 1, here's a half step above the 6th chord, and then the 6th chord. Let's go a half step below the 2 chord and then up to the 2 chord, and then a half step above the 5 chord and then the 5 chord. So with chords, very slowly what we get is let's continue that for 3, 6, 2, 5. Right? So so I was trying to do in that always leading by a half step. If we did a whole step, then we get this. Whole step above the 6th chord, whole step above the 2 chord, whole step above the 5 chord. And that one, it totally works, but you're gonna have to experiment with what chord quality sounds the best with that. The half step one, it tends to work very well if you take the quality of the next chord that you're going to. So we have major 7 for the 1 chord. The 6th chord is dominant, so I'm going to play a dominant a half step above and then resolve to it. The 2 chord is minor 7, so I'm going to play a minor 7 and then lead up to the 2 chord. And the 5 is dominant, so I'm going to play a dominant half step above and lead down to the 5 chord. If you do the whole step one, then I can get a little crunchy harmony-wise, and you would get this. Right? So automatically that sounds like it's not going to really fit in, and there's a reason for that. The half step way is chromatic. We're leading chromatically to every chord and targeting it. When you start using the whole steps, we're dealing with diatonic sounds. Those are all notes in the key that we're playing in. So what we have to do instead is use our diatonic chord scales and our knowledge of those, which is, now that I think about it, something I should do a video on. The diatonic chord scale, just really quickly, is major. So we're playing a scale right up the string and applying these chord qualities. Major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7 flat 5, and then 1, or major 7. So if we have, instead of playing the 7th chord leading to, sorry, let me choose my numbers more carefully. We have 1, and then whole step up from the 6th chord. Instead of playing a dominant chord to lead down to it, we would play the diatonic chord quality that goes with this root. So if this is the 1 chord, the 7th should be minor 7 flat 5, so I'm going to play this shell voicing. And I don't need the flat 5 since I'm only playing a shell voicing, and we've done this in the past. Shell voicings just have root 3rd and 7th, so we don't need to distinguish flat 5 from natural 5. So we would get diatonic, because the 3 chord is minor 7, and then the 6 chord is supposed to be minor, so we'd get and you can mix and match them too. I think, what did I do on the bridge? I don't know if I played this exactly, but I think I did that at one point. I think I went like that right there. This is the 5 chord because it's dominant, we have to think in terms of qualities as their place in the diatonic chord scale. So this would be the 5 chord, 6 chord, going chromatically up, 7 chord. And those both need to use the minor shell voicings. Just thinking of something else. Where else did I use it? You can use it anywhere, basically. So let's say we just did diatonic chord scales, starting from 3. See if I can do this on the spot. I haven't planned this. I haven't planned any of this, but so if we have sorry. Sorry. Just trying to combine all those things. I'm going to need to do a separate video on diatonic chord scales. So how about for now, target the next chord coming up from a half step above or below and use the same chord quality as the chord that's coming up next. And you can choose to standardize it. Okay, I'm always going to proceed from above the chord like this. Some of those are going to sound a little weird. Good exercise out. And then always from the bottom would be this. So by the bottom I mean the chord that's coming up next, we're going to lead up chromatically by a half step. So we'd get that's a little weird since we have the open, but it works. So just experiment with it, but that's how you really get, and also for on the floor playing. I don't have a pick now, so it's not the chunk, a chunk, a chunk, but you know, use a pick, and that would be four on the floor playing. Okay, that was longer than I expected. So I hope that's helpful to some people. If you have any questions, as always, please leave a comment. I think I will be doing the diatonic chord scale video next, or soon, maybe second to next, because there was one other one I wanted to do. But if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, like tritone subs, just let me know. I'm happy to record stuff when I have time. So have a good evening or a good day. Good luck practicing, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.